but it's a very unusual title for the content of this Torah portion. Not every Torah portion has a clear theme. This one does. It's about building the tabernacle, and yet the title is gift or donation. And this talk of the Rebbe discusses the meaning of why this name specifically was chosen. Let's go right to it. We spoke many times about the names of the Torah portions. Although it seems simply that the reason why each name was chosen is because the first word of the Torah portion is its name. That's what it seems like. Since this is a Jewish custom, and the Jewish custom is Torah, and Torah is precise, so the fact that a certain name was chosen for a certain parsha is because that name specifically expresses the theme of that and the content of that Torah portion. Baal Shem Tov says that the name of each thing indicates is the energy of that thing. The name in Hebrew for everything in the world is the godly energy that animates that specific thing. So if the name of this Torah portion is Teruma, that means that's the energy, that's the vitality of this week's Torah portion. This concept that the name of the Torah portion is not just a way of differentiating it from other Torah portions, a way that is distinguished, but it is the content, it is the energy of the Torah portion. You see this specifically, how the name is chosen, and not just that happens to be in the beginning. You see this in this week's Torah portion. Why? Dem ersten Wort oder wird der Mensch nicht about die sind der Dabbe beim selbst Dogma alt LTS jemand schon geht den muss dabei ist ein Wort was steht es nicht das was Pascha was wird aus dem die Seder von anderen Seders. Without knowing this concept that the Jewish people have a custom and therefore it's Torah and therefore this name must be significant, what would you think without this? You'd say, oh, the name of each Torah portion has to do with its beginning. But you can't use you can't use the very first word of the Torah portion, because the very first word is similar in many Torah portions. Like the words Elo Toldos. You have Elo Toldos in the Parshas Noach, Elo Toldos in Parshas Toldos. So you can't use the very first words, and therefore you go a little further. A word that's closer to the beginning of the Torah portion. But you might think that it has to do with just its proximity to the beginning of the Torah portion, and that's why it was chosen as a name, and not that it denotes the content of the Torah portion and is its theme. But with this Torah portion, you see that it is connected to its theme, and not because it's in the beginning. Why? What is the closest unusual word that is in the beginning of this week's Torah portion that would distinguish it from all the Torah portions? The word Vayikol. Hashem says, speak to Jewish people and tell them that they should take for me a gift. The word Vayikol is closer to the beginning of the Torah portion. That's the first unusual word that we don't have in the beginning of other Torah portions. So why is it? That's how we don't have it in other Torah portions at all. But if we wanted to distinguish this Torah portion from others, just use the word Vayikol. It is actually in the Rambam used as a title for this Torah portion. However, the Jewish custom in all of the Chumashim, the Rebbe says that I've seen, is that it's called Truma. That is the Jewish custom. Yes, the Rambam refers to it that way. However, that's the Rambam does, and other commentaries on the Talmud, the Rishonim, do use a certain word to distinguish a one Torah portion from another, but the Jewish custom is to call a different name. For example, the Parshas B'Tzeira, Rashi calls Metzora Zeistia, and we call it Metzora. And there's a whole discussion about that, why it changed. Vayikach Kerach or Kerach. Either way, the fact is Jewish people call it by this name, and that indicates that is its name, and we don't call it by Yichul like the Rambam does. That's the Jewish custom. And why is that the Jewish custom? That's because this is Torah. That means that this name specifically highlights what the content of Torah is about, not about Vayichul they shall take, but the word Truma, which means gift. Then let's move on. As das was man ruft, die said the B'Shem Truma nit blazer zum Samen der mit der Parsha ist nicht von anderen Parshas, nur weil geht reis von der Inner von der Sedra. Ihr in Chloe was teilt der is von andere Sedras. So the fact that this name was chosen to distinguish this Torah portion from others is not just for that purpose. Rather, this name is, if it was just to delineate it, it could have used the word Vayichul, which is close at the beginning. Rather, the name Truma highlights the content of this Torah portion. Name gift. The question though is, that seems to be an inappropriate title for this Torah portion. Darf man verstehen. Levad, das Lochores, das in die Wort Truma nicht ist gedrückt für die Technik, als ganze Sedra, Kalkam, Sevez, ist noch mehr, der Ring von Truma ist nicht, kein Chiddisch, was es darf, in der Sedra, wo man seinen Verankama, bis in den Truma, so ein Chazal, Aser, Truma, Esser Truma sehen. Und Parsha sehen nur, dass sich nur wegen ein Truma, die Truma, fahren noch für Mishkan. There are many kinds of gifts. As the Talmud says, there are 10 kinds of gifts. And we're only talking about one kind of gift. So if this Torah portion was a Torah portion about gifts, then it should have spoken about all the other gifts. All it talks about in this Torah portion is the donations for the tabernacle. And even though the Talmud says that there are 3 kinds of gifts alluded to by the thrice repeated word in the beginning of the Torah portion, the word Truma, and it's referring to the gifts for the sockets, the silver sockets of the temple and the sacrifices, and the general donations to build the tabernacle, but with other items. But it's still only 3. It's not all of them. And usually the word Truma, and when you say the word Truma by itself, what do you think of when you say the word Truma? Truma by itself, what do you think of? What's given to the Kohen, right? The food given to the Kohen.
Right.
So how can we say that the name Teruma, which is supposed to express the content of the entire Sedra, how could that name express its content when Truma, the gift given to the Kohen, is not spoken about in this week's Torah portion?
Yeah.
And there's more. The Torah speaks at length about the idea of gifts in other Torah portions more than this one. So why is this a Torah portion, the one that's called the one about gifts, about donations, about Teruma? It seems a very unlikely choice. That's question number 1. Question number 2, as follows. On the same theme, another question about the name of the Torah portion. The content of this week's Torah portion is the commandment of Hashem to build the tabernacle. You don't see any of that in the word Truma. The word Truma does not at all denote building the tabernacle. That word only highlights the donation of the Jewish people for the tabernacle. But it doesn't at all speak of the actions the Jewish people should do. As the other verse, the verse which says, make for me a holy place, make for me a tabernacle, make for me a mikdash. That verse would express the content of this week's Torah portion. How could you say that the content of the Torah portion, which is about building the tabernacle, how does that have anything to do with the word Truma, which just means donation, gift? The content is about building tabernacle. It's not about gifts. Gifts are just a first step in building tabernacle, but that's not the content of the Torah portion. It's about building tabernacle. The Shailon is noch starker. The question is even bigger. The question really is, the Torah portion should have been arranged differently. The Torah portion should have started with this. It should have said, I find a lot of times that the Rebbe asks questions that You wanted to ask when you were in third grade, but they were like, they'll kick you out. Like, you can't ask that question.
Yeah.
So the Torah portion should have been totally rearranged. It should have started like this: make for me a tabernacle, make for me a holy place. And that is the foundation, that's introduction, that's the point of everything that's discussed in this week's Torah portion. That would have been, make for me a sanctuary, as the very first phrase, would have been a great intro to the commandment, and that's why Hashem is asking you for a donation. In order to fulfill this commandment of Hashem to build the tabernacle, He wants you to give something for it. It should have said first, make a sanctuary, make a temple, and then say how it should get done. Here's step one. First it should say, give donations to build the tabernacle, and then it should say, and this is how you should build it. For them was the pasuk is maktim the tzibas in vikli truma. Faren pasuk is the mikdash is makol hepach. As the word truma bring there is the teichel from the inner said mishul mer vidir pasuk was mikdash. The fact that the Torah introduces the entire discussion of the tabernacle with the words, give a donation for me for this purpose, that's the opening verse. Hashem's asking for a donation, Hashem's asking for a gift. It must be that verse expresses more the theme. The theme is the theme. The theme is about building the tabernacle. It must be that the verse about giving a donation for the tabernacle expresses more. It's the content of building the tabernacle is better encapsulated by the verse, give me a gift, Hashem says, then the verse, make the sanctuary, which is a big question. And at the surface, listen to the two verses. Which verse expresses building a tabernacle more? Make a tabernacle for me, make a holy place for me, or give a gift to me. Obviously, the former. So the question is, why is the Torah portion arranged in this way, where it starts off, Hashem says, give a gift, and then it says, and you should make a sanctuary for me. The whole point of giving a gift is for the sanctuary. First say what we're doing. How do they say every speech is supposed to work? You're supposed to first tell the audience, this is what I'm going to tell you. And then tell them. And then say, and that's what I told you. So Hashem doesn't do that. He says, give a gift. Oh, by the way, you know I should give a gift because I want you to make a sanctuary for me. Why is in that order? We must say this verse encapsulates what a sanctuary is all about more than any other. More than the verse, make a sanctuary for me. We say to the question is even more. Not only is this verse not seemingly not relevant, it seems actually to be the exact opposite of what the content of making a sanctuary is about. What's the idea of a sanctuary? The word Mishkan means a place where Hashem will dwell. Hashem says, I will dwell there. I will dwell in your midst. The point isn't that we should make the sanctuary. The point is that God's presence should be revealed there. Until Hashem's presence isn't manifest there, although you built the whole thing, you haven't made it into a Mishkan. What makes it a Mishkan is that Hashem's presence is manifest. Until Hashem's presence is manifest, it hasn't started to be a Mishkan. For Hashem's presence to rest in this physical building, it's only with Hashem's desire, only with Hashem's infinite power. Rabbi Barak 148. As Shechnas Baruch Habitim Belas was Shemaim Shemaim Kelim Sayenim Leichak Lucha Vadim Shechon is Shir V'Shechem Bais Bezalel was in them is Mudgash as das can uft and very blaze but Akech is Baruch Habitim Mugbal unim mit Akech Plasi from the Adolamat. King Solomon said after he built the temple, he asked Hashem a question. It was a rhetorical question. He says, the heavens and this house can. So when he said the word heavens, he wasn't only referring to the physical heavens. He's also referring to the higher worlds. All the worlds that we learn about every day, the world of Atzilus and Bria and beyond Atzilus, they can contain you. And yet you're able to have a home in this home that King Solomon built. So King Solomon said it's a wonder And the reason it happens is only because Hashem's infinite power, that He is not limited in anything, therefore He can make it happen. It's not because of what a human being can do. It's only because of Hashem's power. So that's what a Mishkan is. A Mishkan is a place where Hashem chooses to rest. However, what does the word Truma mean? Truma is not about Hashem's presence becoming manifest. Rather, it's about what you're doing. The word Truma means you should give a gift. Und noch mehr ist in Wort Truma, in the word gift, not only is it emphasizing what the person is doing, he's giving a gift. It doesn't even say who the gift is being given to. It just says a gift. It doesn't say that the gift is meant to be given to Hashem, but it's going to belong to Hashem. It just says the word gift, the title of the Torah portion, is all about man. Man should give a gift, which is seemingly the opposite of the thrust of what a sanctuary is about. It's about Hashem deciding to rest somewhere. It's not about a person. And yet the title of the Torah portion is gift. Why? Ois Gimel. So we have these questions. Number one, it seems that the title of the Torah portion is inappropriate. It doesn't seem to fit the content of the Torah portion. Number two, the Torah portion itself should have been rearranged so that the beginning should have been about the commandment of Hashem to build a sanctuary. And number three, not only is it inappropriate, not only doesn't it fit, but it seems to be the exact opposite of what the sanctuary is about. It's not about a person giving a gift, it's about Hashem deciding to rest in this specific place. So we'll understand this by first asking a all-encompassing question about this. Why is the Torah going to such length to describe the gifts offered to the tabernacle, the construction of the boards of the tabernacle, the curtains? In the language of our sages, what has happened already. The Torah itself says that the tabernacle was a temporary thing. Hashem says, I will go in a tent and a tabernacle. What's a tent mean? It's something which isn't permanent. It's not a permanent home. It's called a tent. The tabernacle is called a tent, meaning it's temporary. It says, it was a temporary commandment until the Jewish people arrived in Jerusalem. The commandment for eternity is to build a home for Hashem in Jerusalem. The Bais Bezalel, which is called a home for Hashem forever. Why are the details of this tabernacle pertinent for all Jews in all places in all times? We have to know about this. It's important for us to know this not only before the temple was built, but even after the temple was built and the tabernacle was hidden. And instead we had the Beis Hamikdash. It's still important for us to know every detail of the tabernacle was built. Why is it so important? The question is even greater if you try to study about the tabernacle and the Rashis and without even going to other commentaries, just understanding the Rashi, it takes a lot of work to know what each part of the tabernacle is. So the question is, why is it so relevant? Why have to go such an effort to learn this and understand this, every detail of the tabernacle, when it seems to be something that isn't so relevant? We're on page 148, the second column, the first full paragraph. Bishlema. There's Sipur und Dinim wegen den Binyan from the Bate Mikdashes. Regarding the first and second temple, the story of how they were built, although they were destroyed, is an they are relevant in regards to the future Beis Hamikdash. Why? The majority of the third Beis Hamikdash will follow the pattern of the first and second Beis Hamikdash. So studying about the first and second will tell us a lot about the third. That's important. That makes sense. Why is it important to know all the details about the donations they gave and what they did to build the tabernacle? This is the question that you ask in third grade, by the way. Why are you learning about all this stuff? And this is a valid question. What's the answer? Why do we need to learn about the details of the Mishkan? Nachmer. When it get in Bais Hamikdash, and what will the teacher say? It's torah. I have to learn it. Now, that says there's a point. Hashem wants to accomplish something. He wants to tell you something. You need to know about this for a reason. What's Hashem telling you? Achmer. When it get in Bais Hamikdash in the Kriya of Limud from the Prati Bin Hamikdash Benitnira Achana Bachshar Tzom Bin Lasid. Like Shenida Biyavana Bis Meher Menu Yesh Lishmer. Next page. As Telas Ahil Chulu. No Nachmer do Kriya of Limud from Tzuras Habayis is with the Ebesh Hat Gezak. And in Ma'alem Kilohim Beisim Bin Abaitel. We are Chazal Doklim Vortman as Alman Binyan Beisi Batal. The purpose of studying the Bais Hamikdash is not only to know what has to be done in the future, but the Talmud says that Yecheskel asked Hashem, why are you telling me all the details of the third Bais Hamikdash when now is a time when the Bais Hamikdash is no longer here? And Hashem said, but the Jewish people learning about the Bais Hamikdash, I consider it as if they're building the Bais Hamikdash, and they're actually fulfilling the mitzvah, and they're causing the Bais Hamikdash to be built by studying about the third Bais Hamikdash, and the same way the first and second, which have the same pattern as the third Bais Hamikdash. And therefore, you are studying about the third Bais Hamikdash when you study about the first and second, because the third will be similar. That's the first and second. That only explains studying about the building of the temple in Jerusalem. That's a mitzvah that goes on for all of history, forever. Hashem's commandment to build the Bais Hamikdash extends to us right now. Practically, we can't do it, but the mitzvah exists. The mitzvah is to us. However, the tabernacle was only a temporary thing, so why is it so important to us to study about this? Why do we need to learn about the Mishkan? Bais Hamikdash makes sense. It's pertinent for the future. Studying about it makes it happen. Spiritually, we're causing the Bais Hamikdash to be built by learning about it. But why do we need to learn about the Mishkan? Why all these details? Why is it important? Hear the question? L'chaim. Is Zelle. The Chuda, what man can't verrenten. Wie man hat geschehen gerät bei Baruch. You might want to answer, as the Rebbe once spoke about another occasion at length, as it tzivos to mikdash besechem chodsh steht in jedem min mishkan is as a baratzivos there is a bring my Bais Hashem. When Hashem said, "Make for me a sanctuary," although it seems connected to the tabernacle, but that mitzvah also extends to the future as well. Atziv al bat mikdash schel the mikdash lost the says that atziv al bat mikdash is been up from the tzivim of bin mishkan. When Hashem said, "Make for me a sanctuary," that commandment is not only about building the tabernacle, it's also about building all of the three temples. Zeisvait, Hagam is a tzivoy pratim from Midas Arka Barach and Vesim Midas Janit given Anash in the Mishkan, and Abra Dinyan Ikrim Shabbai given Lukas Mishkan Gvor Barambam. Not only is the commandment to build the future temple and the first and second temple the same commandment that Hashem gave us when He told us to build a tabernacle, make for me a sanctuary, that's commandment extends to the future. But besides that, many of the details of the tabernacle indeed are different than the temple. However, the fundamentals of the temple mirror the tabernacle. Next column. We learn from how the Jewish people donated to the tabernacle that everyone was responsible to give and to help. Men and women to come themselves to help and to give their resources, their money to help. So we learn this all from the tabernacle. The tabernacle teaches us about how we have to help build the third Bais Hamikdash and the first and second. So we learn a lot from the first tabernacle that was built, vis-a-vis the major components of the third Bais Hamikdash, and Vasafizas move on as ich the kriv limen vachs mishkan is negeya on health is there being a ministry like the boy. So it's understood that learning about the tabernacle is also pertinent and also helps that the third Bais Hamikdash should be built the way it's meant to be built. We could say even more. Das ist a Pels given bei Eifen Zas friot man gebet am Mishkan Fisha und ins Man von dein Libas Madata und der noch as Bais there is the Farbrengen as there say der von Eifen kein Mitzvah na Kal Kovet free Mishkan el Arai blame Eifen lachem mokem noch und gekent sein Bais Bezalel this is der bin Shalom ve Shalom. is the way that things happened was from lesser to more. In Hashem's commandment to build a Beis Hamikdash, there were stages in this implementation. First, we built a temporary home, and then we built a more permanent home, and then Mashiach will come, it will last forever. So there's stages in how this is actually accomplished, this mitzvah. This mitzvah is achieved in stages. Und der Vorzeichen muss wahrscheinlich geht dem Limit der Krieg und zur Bais, der sein der Schlimm der Kilo hin müssen mit Bais, bisschen das ist nicht genug der Krieg Limit und zur Bais, der Frier soll sein der Krieg Limit von zur Mishkan, euch von die Pratim next page was in nicht im Mikdash. Und erst danach kann sich ruft und durch Krieg zur Bais, dann nie mal allein Kilo hin ist mit Bais. So just like the actual construction of the tabernacle was step 1 and stage 1 of Hashem's desire, to have a home in this world. This was part 1 of creating that space for Hashem, and then there's a higher stage when the first temple was built, and then something more that was achieved by the second temple, as we were learning earlier this week, and the third temple even more. So, parallel to this, learning about the Beis Hamikdash, in order to fully be involved in learning about the Beis Hamikdash, it's not enough to learn about the actual Beis Hamikdash. We have to first learn about the tabernacle. Just like we have to first build the tabernacle, and not only after doing stage 1 we build the Beis Hamikdash. So too, in order to learn about the Beis Hamikdash, stage 1 is learn about the tabernacle. Just like there's stages, it was staggered how the temple was built in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So too, in studying about the Beis Hamikdash, it seems that there has to also be the different parts of this study as well, and therefore makes sense we have to study about the Mishkan. However, everyone's not satisfied with this answer. It's not sufficient. Why isn't it sufficient? Since the Torah is forever, it's geschehen wie Peils, gewend das als Mann und Mat, was der Mishkan ist gestanden mit Neatzmei, mit Mishkan mit kein gewend mit was mit das. There was a time, practically, when there was only the Mishkan. All we had was the Mishkan. And by making the Mishkan, we fulfilled God's commandment to make him a sanctuary. Darf man sagen, als ich der Innen ist Innen Nitzchi, als es da Rabbi allein mein Zruchni ist von dem Innen Mikim nicht wie das ist mit Neatzmei. Since the Torah is eternal, just like there was once a time when Hashem wanted us to make him a sanctuary in the desert, and that's how we fulfill this mitzvah, we have to say that lasts forever as well. There's something eternal, not just it's eternal because it's a stage 1 of something else, but that itself intrinsically is eternal. Something about the Mishkan, the temporary Mishkan, that's eternal. We need to learn Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow to see what exactly is eternal about this temporary structure. It seems it's a temporary thing. Now the mitzvah is to build a third Beis Hamikdash. But since the Torah is eternal, you must say it's something eternal, not just because it's step 1 and the basis for building the Beis Hamikdash, but intrinsically there's something eternal about the building of the tabernacle, and that's what to study about and learn about it, because it itself is a forever thing. And the question is why. We continue. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you for joining. Great day, Marcus. Great day, Roberto. Great day, David.
It's interesting. When Shay was in the room, she sent me a picture